Whether the team is giving us the highest of highs or the blues, we'll cover it all here. Commanders Nightly News. I, of course, am your host, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to tonight's lead story. So the time has finally come. The Madrid game is finally upon us. And I must say, after watching all of the lack of hoopla surrounding this game is so sad. What this game was supposed to be, what it meant when it was initially announced, how we reacted to it, how this was supposed to be Jaden Daniels abroad, helping spread the game to the Spanish country known as Madrid, their first ever exposure to an actual live NFL game. This was supposed to be all about Jaden Daniels spreading the NFL message abroad. His posters were everywhere, banners were up. And you know, one of the nastiest things to watch is when the league has to pivot away from a star player, most notably quarterbacks, because of injury, and the scramble to then try and find other players to market and promote. The nastiness of the Commanders using Frankie Louie and Jeremy Reeves as poster childs for the Commander standard, and using them on billboards and posters and hang-ups on walls, banners outside of the stadium. It's asinine. But it's where we are. It's a microcosm of what this season has been. Jeremy Reeves, everyone. Not to shit on Revo. Love him. Plays hard. Does everything the right way. He shouldn't be on any banner promoting a game abroad. Frankie Louie was an all-pro last year, and had he been playing like one this year, I'd be all for it. But he's been a no-show this season, essentially. A shell of himself. And so seeing him on a banner promoting this game just doesn't feel right. And the lack of enthusiasm for this game, forget about, they're happy, they're excited in Spain. They could care less about all the things that are going on surrounding this game. They're getting a real, actual NFL game. They're ecstatic. But the lack of buzz here is disheartening, but we know why. We know all, and we can list all of the reasons why. But even with that said, for as sad as this game is, Tua Tagovailoa versus Marcus Mariota, right? The battle of the Pacific Islander quarterbacks. As sad as this game is, this is a big-ass game, man. For all the wrong reasons. And it seems like when we play these games, right? These play stupid games, win stupid prizes games that we love to play, they always seem to be against the Dolphins. Remember the play stupid games, win stupid prizes game in 2019 versus the Dolphins? You remember that one? The one that the winner of that game was more likely than not going to lose out on the opportunity to select one of the top quarterbacks in that year's draft class, if you recall. Us winning that game is probably responsible for us not being able to draft Joe Burrow and instead having to draft Chase Young. Again, that was a hell of a consolation prize back then. We were ecstatic to get him. However, this time around, the winner of this game is more likely than not going to springboard themselves into a mediocre 11 through 15 type pick in the draft. The loser of this game is going to catapult themselves squarely in the conversation for a top 5 pick. That is the importance of this game. Both of these teams stink. And now, while I believe the Dolphins are going to win 2 to 3 more games this season, whether they win this game or not. Because I don't think they've used up their get out of jail Jets card, right? I think they have one more of those left. I could be wrong, and they could have used both of them, but I feel strongly that they've got at least one more of those left. And there's probably another team on their schedule. I don't believe the Dolphins have played the Saints yet. I could be wrong. And again, they could lose to the Saints, okay? They could very well lose to the New Orleans Saints. But the likelihood is they play the Saints, they're going to beat the Saints. So they got some more winnable games on their schedule. So whether they win this game or not, I still think they've got some games to win. But us, on the other hand, if we lose this game, who knows if there's another win on the schedule, right? Now, my question to you is a very simple one. What are you rooting for in this game? It doesn't get any more cut and dry than that. Are you rooting for a Commanders win, or are you rooting for a Commanders loss? And I know that the fan base is somewhat torn. And I've spoken to more fans that want to lose this game, lose out, and end up with a top flight pick than anything else. But I've also spoken to my fair share of Commanders fans who have not given up on this season. They are still high off of my supply of hopium. And they are still talking about turning this season around and that this thing is not over yet. And here's the scary part for those of you out there that want to see this team end up with a high draft pick. Do you know what a win on Sunday could possibly do for this season? And I'm not talking playoffs or crazy shit like that. I'm just talking about from a momentum standpoint. Do you understand what a win prior to the bye, when you're expected to get Jaden Daniels, Terry McLaurin, Noah Brown, Will Harris, and potentially Drake Jackson and others back after the bye? Now, again, that doesn't ensure any goddamn thing, right? We as we already know, that doesn't ensure anything. Those guys can come back and we can still lose the game by 30. However, the more likely scenario, if we are able to win, is that the defense looks better. That means Dan Quinn figured out a way to get this defense to not look like one of the worst units ever to put on a uniform and play on an NFL field, which is going to give them confidence moving forward. And then you're going to get an offense that looks vastly different against Denver, Minnesota, the Giants, assuming health, obviously, moving forward, which is going to give this team a chance to win more games. Again, I'm not trying to sit here and advocate to you that this team is any good. And I'm not trying to advocate that this team is going to go on some kind of 2012 run and end up at 10-7 with a playoff berth. What I am advocating, though, is that a very realistic possibility of this team winning 3 out of their next 4 happens if they win this game. They lose this game and you go into the bye week miserable. It's then 6 straight losses. It doesn't feel like you fixed anything. Everything that was broken going to Madrid is still broken. And even though those players are coming back, it's still a broken team. You win this game, and all of a sudden, the warm and fuzzies come back. There's this great vibe, and oh, look at the brotherhood. It's alive, and it's well, and it's kicking, and it's fighting. And oh, look at what we fixed when we went over to Madrid, and we came together. We figured it out. And now let's go win some football games. This is a big game. This could send the season not necessarily in this crazy upward trajectory, but it could give them confidence to go out here and win 2 or 3 games that you probably have no interest in them winning, which would change the entirety of where they select in April. This is a big game. Now, I'll ask you this once more. What do you want to see happen in this game? I'm torn. To be honest with you, I know what's best for this team. Losing this game is what's best. It's hard for me because we are not mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. I'm so sad. I am such a simp for this team. Because we are not mathematically eliminated, I don't know if I can root against this team yet. But what I can do is just watch this game objectively. Like whatever happens, happens. Okay? Whatever happens, happens. I'm not going in rooting for a loss. I'm not over here living and dying on every snap hoping they win like I normally am. I'm just kind of watching the game and seeing what happens. Did DQ improve this defense? Are we still the laughing stock of the NFL from a defensive standpoint? Are Devin Achane and Jalen Waddle going to have field days against us and look like Jamison Williams and Jahmyr Gibbs from last week? Are we going to see anybody step up offensively, right? Are we going to see anybody step up defensively? Is Bill going to get back into the mix and have a major impact on this game? If there were any game left on the schedule for that to happen, this would be the one. Like, there's a lot of things that I'll be looking for. Will I get them? Will those things happen? Totally different discussion and conversation for another day. But I'm straddling the fence here. I'm not going to pick a side, right? We lose? Cool. It's on brand for what we've been this season and where we're heading. Got no issues with it. We win? Oh my God, we just won a game. We haven't won in over a month. Good for them. I don't know what this means, but we just won a game. Hey, how about that? Like, seriously, I get the whole draft capital standpoint and wanting a good draft pick, and I'm all for that. Who really, truly wants to lose 12 games in a row? Who wants to do that? I don't. I know that. Like, if we go 4-13, fine. Okay. But, like, let's not lose 12 straight. Like, that's not something you really want to do. That's not really a road you want to go down. I am surely positive of this. None of us want this. I know you want a high draft pick. But losing 12 straight is not the answer. So if you won this game and you didn't win another game the rest of the season, I'd be okay with that. I'd be okay with that. If you lost this game, you beat the Giants, and then you don't win another game the rest of the season, I'd be okay with that. I can't wrap my brain around 12 straight losses. That's a nasty way to go out with a coach that isn't going to be fired. If it's Ron Rivera in 2023, who gives a shit? He's not going to be here next year. Who cares? DQ isn't getting fired. I don't want the stench and the stigma of 12 straight losses on my head coach as we go into next year trying to act like 12 straight losses didn't happen the year before. I don't want to be riding a 12-game losing streak heading into 2026 when we're talking about starting anew, starting this thing fresh. I don't want to be talking about, hey, Commanders looking to snap a 12-game losing streak that dates all the way back to week 6 of 2025. I don't want to do that. I can't speak for you. I'm not saying it has to be this game, okay? And that's not what I'm saying. I just don't want to do 12 straight losses. But I can tell you that if you win this game, it could set off a chain reaction and you can mess around and win 3 out of your next 4. And I know none of you want any parts of that. No, I shouldn't say none of you. Most of you don't want any parts of that. This is a dangerous one because the Dolphins aren't a good team. And although they're playing better football of late and way better football than we have here of late, they're still 3-7 for a reason, and they still stink. This is a dangerous game because they could easily come in here, vomit all over themselves, us move out of the way and allow them to barf, and we come out of here with a victory and go home happy. And all of a sudden, you don't know what to expect coming out of the bye week versus Denver. I can tell you this, you lose this game, I expect another ass whooping coming out of the bye versus Denver, and I don't give a shit who's playing. You win this game, I can't tell you what the hell you're going to get from this team coming out of the bye. I can't tell you. So Anyway, I digress. What says you? Win or a loss? What are you rooting for? So we transition to in other news, where we find ourselves recapping what DQ had to say with his final press conference of the week heading into the Madrid game. We'll talk about what was said there. But before we do that, let's get into the injury reports for both teams heading in to this week 11 contest in Madrid. So we start with the good guys. And I hate additions to the injury report. They're never good, right? Unless you're telling me that someone has had their 21-day window open and that's the addition, which that rarely is the case. I hate additions to the injury report because that means someone, re-aggravated something, someone, tweaked something, someone doesn't feel like themselves or 100%, and thus it has to be reported. And now their status for the upcoming game could potentially be in question. That's what we see with two dudes that we absolutely want to see on the football field and want to see more of, not less. So you get all of the expecteds out of the way. Traylon Burks, Jaden Daniels, Will Harris, Drake Jackson, Ale Cajo, Terry McLaurin, all out of this game. Cajo, Burks, and Daniels didn't make the trip. Harris, Jackson, and McLaurin did make the trip, have been practicing for the vast majority of the week, but aren't able to play in this game. All right. So that was to be expected. Then you go to the two additions to this list. McGee was not on this list all week. And then all of a sudden he pops up on Friday with a knee injury. He's limited. This is a guy that has dealt with knee injuries throughout his career, the first 2 years here in Washington. The last thing we want to hear is McGee and knee in the same sentence. He's questionable after being a limited participant on Friday. We just can only hope that he'll be out there. Lord knows if there was ever a game where we needed Jordan McGee on the field for his speed laterally, it's this one. Because if he's not on the field, we have no chance of getting to the perimeter, stopping edge runs, and Lord help us all. Ben Sinnott, ankle injury, was limited yesterday, did not practice today. He's questionable. This doesn't seem like it's trending in the right direction with this ankle injury. For a guy who has done next to nothing as a pass catcher here in Washington and really has been relegated to blocking duties only, you really want to see him have more opportunities. Those opportunities only seem to come when Marcus Mariota is in the lineup. This could be the last time we see Marcus this season. It just feels like if Ben Sinnott wants the football, he needs to be out on the field in this game. He may not see another opportunity to touch it. Hopefully he can play. He's trending in the wrong direction from limited to DMP. It feels like he's not going to play in this game, but we will see. Frankie Louvu, shoulder. Quan Martin, shoulder. Chris Rodriguez, shoulder. Bobby Wagner, thumb. All full participants on Friday. All removed from the injury report. Do not have designations for the game, meaning they will all play. There was never any doubt about any of those four, so no surprises there. So nothing really to see from that standpoint. But again, Jordan McGee is the big one. Hopefully he's able to go. I still feel like he's going to be able to play, but anytime we hear McGee and knee in the same sentence, I get a little bit squeamish. So we'll transition from the good guys to the ops. And they had an addition to their injury report as well. Bradley Chubb, their best edge rusher now after trading the former first-round pick, Jalen Shucks. Well, I can't remember his last name. But trading Philadelphia, one of their better pass rushers, Chubb is the only guy left that really, well, no, I shouldn't say that. They also have Chop Robinson, which is what made one of the pass rushers available. Chop Robinson back from a concussion, as you can see at the very bottom of this injury report. He's going to play in the game. Bradley Chubb is the other really good pass rusher that they sport. he has a foot injury. So he's questionable now after a limited day of practice on Friday. So that's interesting. I still think he's going to play, but that's very interesting, him showing up on the injury report on Friday prior to the game. Rasul Douglas didn't practice Wednesday, but has practiced in a limited capacity each of the last 2 days. And also Austin Jackson, who's been limited all week, who has now been downgraded to doubtful. Austin Jackson, a starting offensive lineman. If he can't go, that is going to be a help for the Commanders. But Rasul Douglas and Bradley Chubb are your two big names here. If those two can't go, that hurts an already not very good Dolphins defense. So those are names to keep an eye on. Right now, I think both of them are going to play, but we'll see. D. Eskridge is a backup wide receiver who usually has special teams duties. He is questionable with the shoulder injury. So nothing really there to see. The rest of the guys on the list: Aaron Brewer, Ashton Davis, Ali Gordon II, Julian Hill, Melifonwu, and Chop Robinson, all full participants on Friday, all have been removed from the injury report, do not have an injury game designation, and thus will play in the game on Sunday morning. So Bradley Chubb, Rasul Douglas, two interesting names to keep an eye on, just like we have two interesting names to keep an eye on with our two young second-year players in Jordan McGee and Ben Sinnott. They have Bradley Chubb and Rasul Douglas. So we will keep a watchful eye on those two players. So with that said, let's get to what DQ had to say today at his presser. He started off the press conference, talking about the experience in Madrid. And that's what we're going to talk about some of this press conference, because, with as much as I mock this game because of its sadness and the lack of real excitement for it, this thing went from a game that was supposed to be, a big thing for the NFL and, big announcers, all of the, the bells and whistles that come with this thing, Jaden Daniels and the excitement that he would bring over there, to the same thing that happened to that Lions game. Remember, that was supposed to be America's game of the week. Tom Brady, Kevin Burkhardt, Aaron Andrews, Tom Rinaldi, the whole 9 yards, bells and whistles, 425, all of that good stuff on Fox. We got downgraded to the CD team on Fox of Jonathan Vilma and Kenny Albert. Guess who's doing this game? Guess? No guesses? Jonathan Vilma and Kenny Albert. They weren't originally scheduled to do this game, by the way. So, yeah, the NFL is, not as excited as they once were about this game, but it's still a big effing deal, right? The NFL is trying to expand, sort of like the NBA, and have a global reach. Games like this are very important to that initiative. And so this is the first exposure over in Spain for American football, and you want to put a great product out there. And I'm not sure if these two teams and where they currently are in their season is a great representation of the American game of football that you want to display to these fans, to win them over and have them become lifelong American football fans. So there's a big responsibility that these two teams carry. DQ kind of spoke to that. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But he started off basically by talking about captains. And offensively, Laramie Tunsil, I know this bothers some of you. This aggravates some of you that there are weekly captains. I get a kick out of the all of a sudden pet peeves that everyone seems to have now that the team stinks. This is one of them. Laramie Tunsil is your offensive captain this week. Johnny Newton is your defensive captain this week. And Nick Bellore is your special teams captain for the Commanders going into this game. He then talked about whether or not it matters. Do you have a preference going against former coaches that you coached with versus guys that you've never really had a relationship with? I thought he was going to be like, yeah, you much rather go against guys you don't have a relationship. He's like, really, I don't give a shit. I don't care. Like, I don't have a preference. I could love a guy, and on that game day, I want to beat him. It's sort of like a older brother sibling rivalry where love your brother, but if we're competing, I want to beat you, sort of thing. So they were talking about going against Mike McDaniel. That's been a theme throughout the course of this week. They're very special relationship because DQ helped him with sobriety and all of those things. So that's been a topic of conversation this week. Then he was asked about Trey Amos and his adjustment from college to the NFL and what he's seen from him this year, despite being injured. And he just talked about how quickly he was able to make that transition from collegiate corner, which I've always said one of the toughest positions to transition from college to the NFL is cornerback. Same thing with receiver, but corner to me is tougher because in college, you might see an elite receiver once every 6-7 games, maybe, depending on what conference you play in. You play in the SEC, you're more likely to see, better competition, guys that are going to play on Sundays on a weekly basis. But as far as them being elite, doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be, that might be a 5th-round wide receiver you're going against. That's cool. But that 1st or 2nd-round receiver, you're going to see one of those once every 5-6 weeks, maybe, right? So if you're an elite corner, and that 5th-round receiver isn't moving the needle, you're going to shut that guy down. You're going to play well against him for the most part. You transition to the NFL, and every week you're playing a guy that is capable of kicking your ass. And the route combinations, the route detail, the physicality, the speed, all that shit is ratcheted up. And so it's tough on these corners when they come into the league. And Trey just kind of fit in, hand in glove right away. He seemed like it wasn't too big for him. So, DQ pretty much said, right away, this dude was able to come in, OTAs, really impress us. And by the time we got to training camp, he had already earned a starting spot. Sucks that he's not going to finish out his rookie campaign. He was then asked about Joe Witt Jr.'s role and how him taking over the defense, how quickly can he really impact the defense with just 1 week of taking over the play calling responsibilities? And so with Joe Witt Jr., he talked about, his role changing, obviously, but, really having a lot of respect for him. It's a guy that he trusts and loves the fact that he's got Joe Witt there with him to help, put together plans and things that they're going to try to implement. He also talked about impacting the defense. Look, you take the guys that you have, you try to simplify things, which is what they've been talking about over the last 3 weeks or so, simplifying calls, putting guys in better positions, making sure the communication is tight, all that stuff. He said it's tough to get all of that squared away in 1 week, but we like the week of practice that we've had, essentially, is what he said. Speaking of which, the next question was about, the practice week. And he said that their best day of practice this week was Friday, which is a good thing. He said they were looking for more speed defensively, speed overall in practice. And he felt like they got that in Friday's practice. So he was very encouraged by that. That worked on me once. The whole we heard best week of practice. That was against the Chargers. It turned out to be something that did resonate and translate over to the field. It took a little while, but it did. Then we heard, good days of practice. That didn't quite turn out well for the Commanders. Although they did have that line going into the Chiefs game, and they came out with a sense of urgency, forced some turnovers, moved the football offensively, just couldn't finish drives, that sort of thing. So we'll see if them having a really good Friday practice translates into something more than just another ass whooping. He talked about missing the mark. and the motivation of players in a season that seems to be going in the wrong direction. And he said, look, we have not played up to our standard. We've completely missed the mark, and we're working towards getting back on track. As far as motivating the players, we've got a great locker room. The brotherhood is alive and it's strong, and guys aren't quitting, guys are working hard, and this isn't about effort. It's about us going out and executing. And so we really don't have that issue of guys checking out, not playing hard, not practicing hard, not showing up and giving everything they've got. So he's not too concerned with that. But again, I've said this before, I'll say it again. Lack of effort isn't a prerequisite to getting your ass whipped. You can play as hard as you humanly possibly can and still get your brains bashed in. Playing hard only ensures that you give effort. It does not ensure that you have success. So we'll see what happens, right? I love that these guys play incredibly hard, but you also have to play well. That hasn't happened. So this was a funny question. Logistically, is this something you want to do annually? And is this something you would like to do more often? And DQ, I could tell he made a joke out of it by saying, well, the NFL is watching. So, which translation, now I would prefer not to do this shit. Of course, this is not ideal. Packing all of your things and leaving, like you played on Sunday, packing all of your things and then leaving the following day on a Monday night, and having to find the new routines. And he talked about that in his final question that he was asked, or one of the final questions. He talked about the difficulties of the travel and things, some of the adversities that you face in doing that. I'll talk about that here in a second. But he basically said that the NFL has done this right. Everything was kind of set up well for them. The whole Real Madrid thing, that them practicing at their facility, which is, they thought, felt like it was a great setup for them. Everything he felt like was done first class. They've been treated well. So he talked about all the positives, but you could tell he was pretty much like, yeah, nah, I'm good on this though. Like, if we don't have to do this for another 8 years, because the last time we did an international game was 2016. So, basically 9 years is the last time we went abroad. If we don't have to do this for another 9 years, I'm thinking DQ would be perfectly fine with that, assuming he's still here as the head coach. He'd be perfectly fine with that. But he talked about, and this was a big one, right? And this is when you start to realize how sad of a game this is. Earning Commanders fans in Spain. So when the question was posed by one of the Spanish reporters, and they basically said, this is the first American game in Spain, and these fans have not picked a team. And you know how this goes. A lot of times, the way you choose to be a fan of a team is the first one you saw, right? Like, it's not rocket science. A lot of times, that's why you become a fan of the team that you ultimately become. Someone's like, yo, you live in Detroit. How'd you become a Milwaukee Bucks fan? That was the first team I saw, right? I saw this big guy, wore number 34. He was dunking on everybody. So I became a Milwaukee Bucks fan, right? Like, it's not hard. My buddy is, one of my best friends is a Phoenix Suns fan. Bro, you've lived in Virginia your entire life. How in the hell did you become now, living in Virginia is different because we don't have an actual professional sports team. So you latch on to, whatever. And there's various reasons as to why. Same thing applied to him. First team I saw, Phoenix Suns. I saw this guy, number 34, with a bald head, doing everybody dirty. They were winning games. That became my favorite team. The Spaniard fans are going to be exposed to two teams in this game. And more likely than not, if they're going to like football moving forward, one of these two teams is going to be their favorite. it would have been so nice if Jaden Daniels was there and they could have latched on to him. Jaden Daniels. And all of a sudden, there are a bunch of Commanders fans in Spain. That is not going to happen. And I see most of these fans leaving here as Dolphins fans. However, DQ is like, you know, we got an opportunity to make a great impression on these fans, show them a great game. And, you know, that's what we intend to do. And the question also featured, what is a commander? If you had to define what a commander is, you know, DQ went over his whole spiel about, you know, warrior mentality and toughness and grit and all of the shit that he always, you know, talks about, you know, being the standard here in Washington, et cetera, et cetera. They're going to see none of that more likely than not. They're going to see Devin Achane and Jalen Waddle getting busy and active against our defense, and they're going to become Dolphins fans because of it. That's what I think. But we'll see. Then he was asked about the running back rotation. Specifically, he was asked about Chris Rodriguez because he played, you know, early in the game last week against Detroit and a bunch early and then got injured and didn't play a lot late. But he was supposed to be like the main part of the running back by committee last week. And so DQ basically said, look, our running back room is full of guys, 3 in particular, that we have confidence in all of them. And he's like, it's a great room. They've taken the young guy, Bill, under their wing. Jeremy McNichols is the veteran of the room. You know, Chris Rodriguez is a really good player. We trust all of those guys if we put them on the field, but it's all about the hot hand. Whoever is running, you know, the best that particular game may be the one to continue to get carries. And he says not necessarily a year-long thing. It could be just that game. I'm hoping that this is a Bill game, personally. I'm hoping that this is a Bill game and this is the start of Bill getting his shit together and, you know, kind of getting back to where he was earlier in the season when we were so excited about him. I have not given up on Bill. I refuse to give up on Bill. I know of people who are clamoring for, you know, other running backs, and I get it. I'm not there yet. This guy can play. He's talented. I'm not giving up on him. I hope he gets hot in this game. Then DQ finished off the press conference talking about the difficulties of travel. And he basically talked about routines. Athletes are creatures of habit, which they are. And, you know, he said the good thing about them leaving on Monday is that it gave them more time to establish habits, where to go, things that you become familiar with. He said one of the toughest things is bringing your entire practice routine with you on the road. There's certain things that you do when you're at home, you practice, and then you go on the road and you go play your game, right? But you practice at home, so you get into that routine and regimen every single week. And he's like, here, you know, if you need some treatment, where do I go, right? If you need this, where do I go? If I want to go eat, where's the lunchroom? Where do I go? Like, there's little things that you're accustomed to being able to do without having to think about it. You don't have that here. You have to get into a routine and figure out things. And he said, you know, they were able to do that relatively quickly, but it is an adjustment nonetheless. So that was the thing that he sort of harped on. So that was DQ's press conference in a nutshell. So with that said, we are going to get to the game plan as to how the Commanders can win. But before we do that, we're going to get a word from one of our sponsors, come back on the other side, and then we will get to the game plan. Sleeper. Sleeper is the best way to experience and connect over sports together. It's a one-stop shop for all of your sports needs. You can celebrate and chat in the games in real time with other users, get the fastest scores, blazing fast news and alerts right at your fingertips. Play in fantasy leagues and win real money on picks contests. So enjoy sports the way they were meant to, together. Download the #1 sports app today. Predict the hottest football stats like passing yards, receiving yards, touchdowns, interceptions, and much more to cash in on your daily fantasy football skills. Use promo code LTN and Sleeper will match your first deposit up to $100. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states. Check out Sleeper today. Sleeper. All right, so now we get to the game plan. What will it take for the Washington Commanders to somehow snap their 5-game skid and get back in the left-hand column? Much to the dismay of some of you, this is a realistic possibility in Week 11 versus these Dolphins. While the Dolphins are better than us, really on both sides of the football, I think our special teams is sharper than theirs, which is usually the case. Our special teams, we go into just about every game with our special teams being one of the few advantages that we do have. These teams are very similar. I went through this yesterday when we went behind enemy lines. These teams are very similar, hence the 3-7 record. They arrived at the same record for a reason. They do a lot of the same things. They commit stupid penalties. They give up big plays. They turn the football over. They're not great defensively. They're not, fundamentally sound offensively. The biggest difference is the Dolphins have dynamic and explosive players on both sides of the football, whether you're talking Chop Robinson or Bradley Chubb on the defensive side, or you're talking about Jalen Waddle or Devin Achane on the offensive side. So they have havoc-wreaking, game-changing type players, which the Commanders do not. And that is the reason why it feels like the Dolphins have the upper hand and why they are a 2.5-point favorite heading into this game. That said, there's still a way where the Commanders could come out on top in this game. And here's what they would have to do now. I've gone away from the traditional keys to victory because that point of the season has passed us by. So now it's just a list of about 5 items or so of things that need to get done if this team is to have a realistic shot at winning. So the first thing is the most apparent. It's the easiest. It's low-hanging fruit, but it must be said because you have 2 bad teams playing, and this is usually the determining factor as to who wins the game when it's 2 bad teams, especially with it being at a neutral site. Right? Normally, my rule of trash teams is a very simple one. Take the home team, right? It's a very low think probability for me. I don't have to engage in trying to figure out why this team might win. 2 trash teams, pick the home team. Well, that has gone out of the window because we're in a neutral site here. So here's the next thing that's probably going to determine the outcome of this game. Limit penalties, turnovers, missed tackles / assignments, drop passes, etc. This has to be stated, even though this is very, very clear, right? Obvious. The team with the fewer mistakes will win this game. I don't think I have to tell you that. You already know that, but I'm reiterating that. I'm just going to that's the elephant in the room. Let's just go ahead and get it out of the way. Limit penalties, limit turnovers, missed tackles, missed assignments, drop passes, etc. Anything that'll get you beat, eliminate that, and it'll give you a much better chance of winning the game. One of these 2 teams, if not both of them, are going to turn it over. They're going to have penalties. They're going to have mistakes. Who's going to have the fewer of them? That's the team that's going to win this game, especially when you get to the turnover part. Team that takes care of the football is going to be the team that wins. If both of these teams take care of the football, then you go to some other factors. Who had a big drop on 3rd down? Who had the penalty on 2nd and 6 that pushed it back to 2nd and 16 and couldn't overcome it? Who had the 3rd down penalty that negated a 1st down or a big gain, and then they ultimately had to punt? Those are the things that's going to turn this game on its head and give somebody the advantage in this game. The next key, the run game must be a factor. To me, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Marcus Mariota can't do this by himself. He cannot do this by himself. He is going to need some semblance of the run game in order for this offense to be effective. They had a semblance of the run game against the Lions. They were able to score over 20 points. They had the run game against Atlanta. They were able to score almost 30 points. They had no run game, and they had the run game against the Raiders. They scored 41 points. Obviously, they were, some other things that happened in that game. Special teams jumped in and assisted, all of that good stuff. But the run game was prevalent in that game. They scored over 40 points. The games in which there was no run game assisting Marcus Mariota, this team has struggled. Kansas City, Dallas, Marcus Mariota struggled mightily in those games. Obviously, the Dallas game, he came in relief. It was a tough spot to come in to. But that Chiefs game, scored 7 points because there was no run game, and Marcus was asked to do everything by himself, essentially. And that's a recipe for disaster. You want to win this game, you're going to need the run game to show up. You're going to need a guy like Bill. I'm really looking at Bill and saying, bro, it's time. Like, it's time for you to reemerge and separate yourself from the rest of this running back room. We shouldn't be having this conversation right now, to be honest with you. Once you got the starting gig back in like week 4 or whenever it was, that was supposed to be you taking off. By week 5, when you went off against the Chargers, you weren't supposed to be looking back, bro. This is supposed to be your job. Here we are with this running back by committee bullshit again. Chris Rodriguez might be out there when the game starts. We got to get you back going again, man. Here's an opportunity to do it against a Dolphins defense that isn't great against the run. Next key to victory, defense has to show improvement and life. Improvement is such a vague term because guess what? Our defense has been the absolute worst over the last month. The only reason it's not worse than Dallas and Cincinnati is because those defenses have been bad since week 1. Our defense just started being atrocious about just a shade over a month ago. So we're making up for lost time, though. We've gone from a, slight just outside of the top 10 defense to the 30th ranked defense in football. We've been a mess. So when I say the word improvement, that's an understatement because you don't have to do much to improve upon what has been the worst defense in football over the last 2 weeks in particular. You don't have to do much. Just get a stop and you're better than you were last week, right? Speaking of which, so what I'm going to actually attach an expectation to the word improvement in life. You need to force at least 4 change of possessions. Doesn't matter how they come. You notice I didn't say punts. 4 change of possessions. That could be, takeaway, stop on 4th down and 2 punts. It could be 2 4th down stops, a punt, and a takeaway. It could be 2 4th down stops, 2 punts, whatever. Just 4 times where the Dolphins don't score and you get the ball back to your offense somehow. 4 changes of possession. That feels like a lot, being that this team didn't force a single punt nor change of possession last week. Not one. So that feels like a lot. But if you can't do that, you can't beat the Dolphins. You can't beat the Dolphins. Next key to victory. Dominate special teams and win another phase. Play complementary football. So I would prefer them to win all 3 phases. All right. Leave no stone unturned and don't leave it to chance. You dominate special teams, you win the other 2 phases, you're probably going to win the game as long as you don't turn it over. But we have to win special teams. And you know what would be really nice? If you actually force some punts and you give Jalen Lane some opportunities and he actually breaks one. And oh, by the way, the Dolphins have run back, I think, 2 punt returns for touchdowns this year. So their special teams is no slouch either. So we got to be on our P's and Q's, Y's and Z's, special teams wise. And it'd be nice to maybe get something from our special teams unit like we did against the Raiders. But you got to win the special teams. And then you got to win another phase of the game. You win special teams and you win offense, you're going to win the game. You win special teams and defense and don't score on offense, you can still lose the game. So let's just see what they do in this game. And then last but not least, I saved the best for last because all these other things that I've said, minus the first one, which is turnovers and not, having penalties and things of that nature, become a moot point if you don't take care of this last one. But this is the one that should scare you the most. If you want the Commanders to win this game, this is the one that should scare you the most. Slow down Jalen Waddle and Devin Achane. What slowing those two down looks like, here's what I got. Those two can combine for 2 touchdowns in the game. Okay, meaning it doesn't matter if Waddle gets 2 and Achane gets none, Achane gets 2 and Waddle gets none, or they both get 1. They can combine for 2, no more than that. Also, they can combine for 2 explosive plays. All right. Explosive for me is anything 20 yards or more in excess of yards. So 20-yard gains, each of them can have 1, or Waddle can have 2, Achane can have 2, right? Whatever that looks like. What you can't have is Waddle with 3 explosives and he ends up with 6 catches for 123 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then, which is basically what Jameson Williams did to us last week. And then you got Devin Achane with 176 all-purpose yards, 112 yards rushing, and there's a 62-yard run for a touchdown in there. And then he has another, 59 yards receiving, and there's a 33-yard touchdown catch in there for that side. And that's 4 touchdowns between the two of them, and over 300 yards of total offense between the two of those guys. That could very well happen in this game, and you lose if that happens. That can't happen if you want to win. This isn't like the NBA where you're like, hey, let Wemby get his and just make sure the other guys don't kill you, or let Luka get his, but don't let Louie go off, or don't let DeAndre Ayton get you. Just let Luka go off for his 49 as long as he doesn't have 13 assists with that shit, right? This ain't one of them situations. If those 2 dudes kill you, you're dead. Bang, bang, you're dead. You got no shot if you can't slow those 2 down. That should be the focal point of your game plan if you're the Commanders defensively. Jalen Waddle and Devin Achane. If Washington gets you, so be it. If one of these other receivers gets you, cool. Cool. It is what it is. If those 2 get you, you have no chance. You have no chance. All right. So with that said, I've got the Commanders losing this game 34-23. It's all about the defense, y'all, and we don't have any. Right now, our defense is offense because there is no D in defense for us right now. And DQ taking over the play calling in 1 week's time, not going to change a damn thing. Maybe you give DQ the bye week to kind of scheme it up and figure out what's the best usage of this guy or that guy and that guy. Maybe you come back with a better product against Denver post-bye. But just 1 week's time over in Madrid, different set of circumstances. You got a depleted defense at this point, losing Trey Amos. And you never know. Mikey kicks back outside. Noah Igbenogany goes back inside. And, Jonathan Jones, who I didn't think was terrible last week, all of a sudden, you never know. Those guys could hold it down and they could get the job done. And the revenge game of Noah Igbenogany and Robbie Chosen can go the way of the Commanders. But I don't see those things happening. You get to Tua, you force him into some mistakes, you got a shot to win. You don't get to Tua, the ball comes out quickly. Just know this. DQ hasn't beaten a Shanahan disciple in his career. He's 0-7, if I'm not mistaken. Someone gave me that number. I trust them because every time I've seen DQ go up against Matt LaFleur when he was with Dallas, the Packers would kill them. Every time they would go up against San Francisco, against Kyle Shanahan, they would kill him. So I have no reason to believe that that's not the case. And I can't imagine with all the shifts and all the motions that the Dolphins have, this defense who can't play motions to save their life. No one motions, it feels like, more than in pre-snap movement, more than Mike McDonald or Daniel, excuse me. There's no way this defense is going to be able to communicate, do the things that they need to do, and keep up with the team speed that the Dolphins have. Another 30-point game given up by this defense. The offense actually will play very solidly. It just won't be enough. It'll be a lot like the Falcons game where the offense played fine, but the defense stinks, much like the Lions game last week. So What do you think is going to happen? Leave it down in the comment section. Score and more. Got a couple of super chats, and then we will get out of here. Colin Talks Sports. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Colin Talks Sports writes, really went through the stages of grief this season. Denial versus the Bears, anger versus Cowboys, bargaining versus the Chiefs, depression versus Seahawks, acceptance versus Lions. That's how it goes, man. That is how it goes. I too have gone through. I went through depression last night. I told you it's going to hit me in waves. I went through depression last night watching Drake May. I knew that was going to happen. I called that, you know. I knew that was going to happen. Seeing how they're playing and how well things are going for him, and just knowing that's what I want. And I expect us to be back there next year. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not tripping. It's just, it sucks knowing that, you know, it's like sitting in timeout. You're watching all your friends play outside. You're inside, you know, and they look like they're having a great time. But this is the penalty you have to pay, you know, for making a deal with the devil, essentially. And so you got to pay. They're outside having fun, and you can only sit and watch. It sucks. But yeah, Colin, that sounds about right. And you hit each of them in a row. Each game kind of gave you a different emotion. That's actually funny. Video channel. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, Lou, video channel. Quinn has had 30 games with this defense and no improvement. That's 2 seasons of football. Message and scheme isn't working. He's a sunk cost. So yeah and no. The 30 games with this defense, he wasn't calling it. He had an influence on it, obviously. It's not like he just turned it all over to Joe Witt and had no say-so whatsoever in what was going on defensively. But he hasn't been as involved as he's going to be now. And so you can charge those first 30 games to his account, sure. I'm not going to tell you that that's an erroneous charge, but I will tell you that if DQ decided to call into the bank and say, hey, these are erroneous purchases that you've put on my account. Like, I'm not responsible for the first 30 games in totality. Some of this, I'll take some of these charges, yeah, but I'm not responsible for all of this in totality. If that is in fact the case, then now we start seeing real charges hit his account, and it starts with this game on Sunday versus the Dolphins. And I have no reason to believe that it's going to look any different than what it's looked like over. I don't expect it to look like last week where they didn't force a single punt, because the Dolphins aren't like that. Okay. So I don't expect this to look like a well-oiled machine like Seattle did 2 weeks ago, because the Dolphins aren't like that. But what I do expect it to look like is the Atlanta Falcons game, where we basically couldn't stop them either. And we made Michael Penix Jr. look like Steve Young. So we're going to take another left-handed quarterback that has had his ups and downs this season, and we're going to make him look like the best left-handed quarterback to ever spin it, like Boomer Esiason or some shit, right? So I do think that's what it's going to look like. It's going to look like the Falcons game. The Falcons, you know, had punts in that game. We were able to slow them down a little bit, but not enough. We forced a turnover in that game. We just didn't do enough defensively, and offensively, we made 1 or 2 mistakes, and that cost us. That's what I think is going to happen in this game. It's going to look a lot like that Falcons game. So, you can say he's a sunken cost at this point. I don't necessarily agree with that wholeheartedly, but I get it if that's the stance that you're taking. DQ's put himself in a no-win situation here, taking over the defense. I really don't think he should have done this. He should have delegated this to someone else on the staff. And then if he wanted to really take over this defense next year, so be it. Then I think it would have been the best time for him to do it, when you get a fresh slate. You know, you get all your stuff back. You add some more pieces to the puzzle, and now you say, all right, I got what I need. Let me go out here and show y'all what this shit really supposed to look like. But I guess he felt desperate, and he felt like he needed to do this. So here we are. Anyway, I digress. That is going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on Commanders Nightly News. I will be back tomorrow with the skill game for this game and the Sunday night game. So this is going to be a fun week of, primetime games or standalone games, we'll call it. For the NFC East, you got us playing at 9:30 a.m. Again, this should interest no one but us and Dolphins fans. But then you got the Eagles playing on Sunday Night Football versus Detroit. And then you got Dallas playing the Raiders on Monday night. So we'll be locked in all weekend watching NFC East football. And so this is the first of 3 games that will, be standalone games with NFC East teams participating in them. So I'm looking forward to it. Obviously, the Kings will be live on Sunday morning, 9:30 a.m. over on the Commanders Kings channel, watching this game with you guys live. We'll have a watch party for this game, see how this game turns out. We're going to have fun, whether this team is getting their brains bashed in or they're actually surprising us and playing well. Whatever the case may be, we'll watch it together, react to it. And I'm still going to have all the same bells and whistles on my channel after the game is over. I've got Bleacher Report, but once I'm done with Bleacher Report, I'm coming to my channel to do a post-game recap, taking us into the bye week. What did we see? Did we see any changes with this defense, etc.? We'll talk about all those things and then some after the game here on the Louie T Network. So you know where to find me after the Eagles game on Sunday night. You know where to find me after the Cowboys game on Monday night. So nothing changes. Obviously, the Commanders have a bye week next week, so the programming will be a little bit different. You're still going to get Commanders Nightly News every day, but there won't be, it might be earlier in the day because I'm not waiting on injury reports and DQ to speak and all of that. I think the last time we'll hear from DQ is Monday after the game, assuming that they get back, in enough time. You may not hear from DQ until Tuesday, depending on the departure time, when they get back, etc. My guess is they'll get back in plenty enough time on Monday for DQ to address the media, and then we won't hear from anybody with this team until the following Monday, where DQ will address the team or the media and kind of set the table for the Sunday night game and heading into that week. Maybe start telling us what guys will return to practice, what guys may have a chance to play, this, that, and the third. We'll get all those updates Monday. If we don't Monday, we'll definitely get it that Wednesday. But a lot to digest, but we'll get there eventually. Anyhow, that is going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on Commanders Nightly News. I look forward to chopping it up with you guys throughout the course of this weekend. You'll see my face tomorrow. Of course, you'll see me on Sunday, and et cetera, et cetera. Until then, I'm your man Louie T, signing off. You guys have a good one. Take care. Peace.
Here comes the diesel. Here comes the diesel. There's the snap, hand to Riggins. Good hold. He's got the first down to the 40. He's gone. The 35, the 30, the 20. He's gone. He's gone.